Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to another stream. Happy Saturday, everyone. Hoping that you are having a really good day. And this is going to be day two of essentially the Threads application that we are creating. So it's going to be super fun. So thank you, everyone who's joining. This is, again, for those of you who are joining right now, this is going to be day two of the Threads application that we are building using Next.js. We are using Next 13. In the first day, we already talked about a couple of things like how the Next router works, how do we work with params, how do we work with query parameters within the Next route. Today, we are going to actually start working on the APIs. So we did discuss or we did create the UI. So far, what we have right now here is an input. You have the ability to see these rotating buttons as you see right here. And then we also have the possibility of just displaying some comments. Hey, Transigner, how's it going? Does Twitch work fine today? That's a surprise. That's a surprise. It doesn't. Usually it doesn't. It just red, not red, but black screen all over. But how have you been? Long time no see. So how about we start looking into this? So today we're going to do a couple of things. Let's talk about it right now. So first of all, what we are going to do is if I go to my, not this one, not here as well, but here. So today, this is what we are going to do. We already talked about some UI, but today, this is what we are going to do. We should be working on or creating APIs. And let me sort of make this a bit bigger. Excel, yeah. So creating APIs, and this means we are going to create a bunch of APIs. So we are going to say, I'm going to have an API for getting comments. So comments, then we can also get comments by parent ID. So this is going to be the same route. Then we are going to have, because the app, so if I summarize it for you, what we have to do today is you look at this application. So we have top level comments, and then we could also have replies. So as I showed before in my Angular application, we did have replies of replies of replies. So ideally, the Exali draw that we discussed about having something like this. So we would have these orange top level comments. Each comment can be replied to. So you basically can reply to a comment. And then you can reply to a nested comment and a nested comment and a nested comment. So there can be many nested comments in this application. Right now, we only have this, but we are going to proceed further with the data. So we are going to first look into the APIs so we can sort of work those out. And once we have the APIs ready, then we are going to jump back to the front end and sort of intertwine them together. If you're watching this for the first time, or if you don't know who I am, I'm CodewithAhsan, and I am a Google acknowledged expert in Angular. I've been in the software industry for about 10 years or more than 10 years. I am a front-end focused full stack software architect. And yeah, I love creating applications and teaching, and also just sharing my knowledge and also practicing along the way, because this actually helps me a lot to get better and better and better every day because I'm trying out new things. So this Next.js application, as we discussed already, is going to be built with TypeScript. So the front end is essentially React. The back end is Next or Node.js, so to say, and we are using the Mongo database in here. So today we also have to look into that. So let's also put that in Exalido. So the plan for today that we have right now, let's actually bring them together because it seems like I'm doing a lot of things here and there. Let's put this guy right around here. So we can say something like, hey, we have a plan for day two. So plan for day two is going to be creating APIs. So we have a bunch of APIs that we already discussed, right? Then we also should have, so we talked about this, and this one is, this one is supposed to be a get call. This one also is supposed to be a get call. And then we should have one single API endpoint to add a comment. So when we write something like this, we should be able to send an API call that creates a comment into our database, and we should be able to then render those things as well. While we are having all of this, what I would encourage you to is ask questions in the chat about JavaScript, about Next.js, about front end, back end, about jobs in the market. So feel free to have a conversation because I'm not just here to code, I'm also here to answer questions and also have a bit of chit chat with you as well. So we talked about the API comments. What more we are going to do is we are going to also create endpoints for creating a user and getting a particular user. So we should have something like get, or let me think about it. Yeah, let's create a particular user. So we're gonna do a post API slash users, and let me know in the chat, should we use authentication in this application or not? Should people be able to see their Google or sign in with their Google account and then should be able to post or not? Do we want authentication in this application or not? Let me know in the comments. So we're going to create a bunch of APIs. Then we are going to also go ahead and we are going to, so let's start it. So this is going to be creating APIs. Let's put this guy inside here. Okay. Then we should also be looking into connecting with the database. So we say connect or connect with DB. And in this case, we are actually talking about MongoDB with Mongoose. So we are going to use Mongoose and MongoDB. Let me know in the chat, should we work with authentication or not? Should we go with authentication? Write in the chat and then we'll take it from there. So this one, let's have a look here as well. And I'm also gonna bring in the chat to the view as well. So we should be able to see the chat there as well. Okay, so someone says we need authentication. Are there more people who think we should work with authentication or not? And this one, we can bring this down right here. Oops. Bring it here. So we talked about database. We talked about APIs to sort of work with them. And then also, I think we should be, let me think, are we missing anything? So if we wanted to do authentication, we are going to talk about that in a bit. But apart from that, now that I think about it, this application, we already have the UI built in. We should be able to hook up the front end and the back end. So we are able to create those things. So let's create another one. This one is going to be, let's use green for this one. So we can hooking up front end and back end. So finally, we're going to hook those up and make sure that our application works. Maybe we'll also look into deployments as well. So let's create one for that. Let's go with deployments. Let's make this small guy. Oops. This guy and this. Kamran says yes with authentication. Toshan says yes for authentication. Kamran is asking, which tool are you using for presentation? This one is called exalidraw.com. Really nice tool. I absolutely love it for just sort of wireframing and sort of putting out my ideas on, say, this sort of a board. It's really cool tool and it's free. If you want to save your designs across different systems, then yes, you can absolutely go ahead and use the premium version, which is I think Exalidraw Plus. Okay, so Bad says authentication. Shahjahan says authentication. Cool. So that means we are going to have some sort of authentication in that case. So maybe we can use next auth and then we'll take it from there. Okay. Cool. So we talked about deploying. Then we should also be talking about next auth as well. So we can sort of work with authentication. Do we have another color left? No. Pink. This seems so close with the orange one. This is the orange. That's the pink. All right, let's put next authentication or authentication. Okay, so let's go with authentication in this case, and then we have the API calls. Cool. Now that makes sense. Let's start with, we're going to start with creating the APIs for comments. Once we are done with actual comments, then we are going to make sure that we have authentication in place, or we could do vice versa. We could start with authentication and then go ahead with the rest of the stuff as well. So now that we think about it, let's talk about if I had to have no authentication at all, but I still had to create comments, how would I do it? But then also, I think when we create comments, we also need the we also need the user ID in that particular case. So I'm a bit confused. Let's maybe start with the authentication and we'll take it from there. So what I'm gonna do is let's go to next auth, which is this guy. So let's say, and it has been quite some time, I've not looked into it, but we are going to see how to get started and how to make it work. So what we need to do in this one is we install next auth, we add an API route just like this. Should we go with Google authentication or GitHub authentication? What do you think? Ubaidullah says, "Hey Hassan, good to see you live again." Thank you, Ubaidullah. My PC was in a box, so I was living in a temporary apartment, and then I have moved now to sort of a permanent one. So yeah, I picked it out from the box. Karar says Google. Shahjan says, by the way, I just moved to Express from Vue.js, trying to wrap my head around the backend. That's nice. Awesome, Shahjan. There is I think I have some tutorials on YouTube about Node.js itself, sort of how to create APIs or with Express essentially. Do have a look at those as well. I think one of the most prominent ones was YouTube. I think the Node Redis one is pretty new, so you can definitely look at this one as well. I'm gonna quickly share this in the chat. So how many people think we should go with Google? Okay, you have to understand one of the things, that when we create these applications with authentication and when we ask people to try them out, not everyone is comfortable giving up their Google sort of account, because when you say, hey, I want Google authentication, then obviously you're allowing people to go to basically share their email with my application. So a lot of people are usually not really comfortable with that. I think for me, I find it much easier to share my GitHub or my GitHub account and authenticate with my GitHub rather than my Google. But we can go with Google. If your target audience for your demo projects is someone who has a GitHub account, I would rather recommend using the GitHub account instead of Google Auth. But we can go with Google. That's fine. Okay, so let's have a look at the Google authentication in this case. So where are we? Routing, yeah, here. So let's do this step by step. So we're going to start with npm install next auth. So where is our project? Here it is right now. I'm using npm. So you can see we have a package lock JSON. I'm going to zoom in a bit so everybody can see the code. And then I can also open a terminal. Let's go with that. And then here, let's install next auth right away. By the way, it's always a good idea to commit your changes. So far we have a UI working with some dummy data. So, okay. And I also always check that my code is what it's supposed to be. So in here, I can see one thing that I don't want there, like create next app generated by, so I don't want this. So I'm going to actually change this to say, the title of this application is Threads Next App. And here we can say, walked upon by the Code with Ahsan community. So I want this to be there. And now if I go here, you should be able to see here, it should rather say Threads app, unless I've stopped my server. Have I stopped my server? Yes, I have. No, there's an error. What's the error? Let's see. Invalid DOM property stroke width. No, everything should be good. Yeah, here. So now you see Threads Next App. And if I go to the meta tag, the description should say, here you can see worked upon by Code with Ahsan community. So that's how Next.js works when it comes to metadata. Cool. So now that we have this, let's actually commit the code and then we'll take it from there. So I'm used to doing things properly. So this takes a little bit of time. So here we have the comment component. I'm just making sure I have nothing that I don't want. I have a comment right here, but I think it's still going to be fine. I can keep it for now. Let's also look at this file. Looks good. Looks good. Looks really good. Pa pa pa. paste CSX. Yeah, looks good. So let's add those. We're gonna add a comment, git commit m, oops, we can say feed comment, implemented comment component. We can also say implemented comment form component, just UI stuff so far. And then I can just go ahead from this point. So now that we have commented this, let's install the package. So npm install next auth. This is the first step that we want to do. And then we have this guy. And we should have the package installed. And let's go to the documentation and see what this say. So if you're using Next 13.2 or above with the new app router, you can initialize the configuration with the new route handlers or by following our guide. So in this case, with the new route handlers, let's have a look at that. So in this case, we do have the route here. We have the get method. We can also use the HTTP methods, blah, blah, blah. The only thing is that when my developers from Salt also were working on those, they were looking in these things as well. So let's see what their guide says. So in this case, 13.2, we are using the app router. So let's do this the right way. In this case, we should have an app API, auth, next auth, and route.ts. So I think this makes much more sense. So Chant is asking, is NextJS when we installing a package or dependencies, how do you know that package is SSR compatible or not? That's a good question. In some of the cases, yes, it would not be obvious, but I think this should, when we are talking about 13.2, I think this should be still compatible, because when we talk about SSR compatible, the only thing that you need to have is in your API routes, you need to have this information of if the user is authenticated or not, and that you usually get with your with the request. But we are going to get into that. So we need to have this folder API auth next auth route ts. So let's actually create that. I'm gonna copy this guy. So in my file structure, what I want to have, I'm gonna zoom out a bit. I still hope everyone can see this, but this is much nicer for me. If this is too small, let me know in the chat. So in app, we should have an API folder. Then we should have an auth folder. Inside that, we have to have a folder named next auth. So dot next auth. And inside here, I think we need to have a route.ts. Let's see. Yeah, route.ts. And then we can have this right here. So I can go to this particular file. Oh, did I create a folder right there? I think I did. So this guy needs to be, yes. And this should have a new file, route.ts. And in this file, now I can create next auth from next auth. Handler is going to be next auth. And then we are just saying handler as get, handler as post. Neat, pretty neat, nice. Shahjahan says Zoom is good. Thank you, Shahjahan. Animesh says, sir, on next Monday, I have Angular interview as fresher front-end developer role. So please topic I have to cover, please suggest me. Anyways, try to Google for Angular interviews or Angular interview questions, and then you'll find a bunch of questions. Just practice those. Don't worry too much. So I think you already know Angular a bit. Just look through the interview questions from Google, because mostly the interviewers also either ask from their experience, or there's a big chance that they would also Google the questions. Okay, so now that we have this, we can go ahead and see, do whatever you want here. That's fine. So in this particular case, when we get a request, and then we have the session. Where are we getting the session from? So we got auth. Yeah, from this section. Yeah, so this is essentially what I would want. So in this case, we have provider Google and Google provider, and then we should be able to take it from there. Let's see. Yeah, sure. I'll explain that, Karar, in a bit. So I'm trying to look into actually the an example that thoroughly focuses on it. All right, so let's see options, variable, blah, blah, blah. So next auth URL, we need to pass that. And then we have providers. Let's say credentials provider, credentials, username, password, authorize, fetch your endpoint, blah, blah, blah. But then when we talk about OAuth, we can go ahead and see this guy. So auth 0. So in here, this is what we want. So Google provider, and then we should be able to provide all the information. Okay, so in this case, we should be able to import this. So we have cons provider equals Google provider. Let's import this from NextAuth, and we can import it from the NextAuth providers. Then we need a client ID, type string, blah, blah, blah. I think this is still going to be fine. And this is not going to work if we don't provide it. So client secret, and then we have profile. This is still going to be ID profile dot ID, or is it UID? No. Wait a second. Profile dot HD blah 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 picture sub. Oh, there's no ID. Let's return profile for now. We don't want to customize it at the moment. So profile. The Google profile is not assignable to await user ID is missing in the type. Oh. Let's remove it at the moment. We'll start small and then we'll go from there. Which database are you using for authentication? We're going to be using Mongoose or MongoDB. Can you please explain the name? Yes. So this thing means that there could be any API route. So this could be something like /API /auth /1 /2 /3 /4 /5. And these all would be then used inside this next auth. So all these are then taken as an array of parameters automatically. So what NextJS does or NextAuth does is that when it calls this route API /auth, sometimes it calls with /error, sometimes it calls with success, and then internally it sort of analyzes, what it wants. So there can be many slashes and they all come under sort of a params array if you have your folder structure like this one. So really good question. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So we have the import Google provider, blah, blah, blah. Warning error guides. Let's see. So let's see if we can go with the basics. Nope, we don't want that. Client API, upgrade guide v4, configuration. Okay, so in this case, if I have a look at right here, so this one is API /auth /sign in. This is what we want. The endpoint is also used by the sign in method internally. Sign out, API auth session returns the client save session object. Cool. Okay. Then we can also have a look at so we do a next auth. Then we export the handlers. And then I think this should be it. Am I missing something? So the options that we have, what options do we require there? There should be a next auth secret and next auth URL. Okay. And this is version 4. Okay. So providers is going to be something that we do. Does it take, if I go here, providers, and I think I can say provider here, and this should still work because we are using the Google provider. What else should be here? So provider required yes. Then we have a secret. So default value is a string. No default in production, required yes in production. So we don't need secret yet, but we will add it later on. So let's add a secret for now. Let's say CWA for now. Then we also need, so we talked about the secret. Then we have, or we can create a secret like this one as well. It's fine. So let's add this right here. So this is OpenSSL RAND base 6432. So this is a secret that we can put. Now I could put this in the env file, or I can also do it right here. So let's put that in an environment file. So in here, I can create a file called .env.local. And inside here, I can put this against the next auth secret variable. So in the env.local, you can go ahead and do this. And then what I can do is I can use this right here. So process.env.next auth secret, and this should be provided. Okay. Then what do we want? Session. The default value is object, required no, so we don't want that. JWT default value is an object, required no, so we can keep it for now. It's fine. Then we have helper, required, nope. Then we have pages. So in here, we can specify URLs to be used if you want to create custom sign in, sign out, and error pages. So we don't want custom. Let's remove that. Callbacks, nope, we don't want that. Events, adapter, debug. Let's put the debug to true for now. So we can also see that in our logs. It's always good to debug. So debug is going to be set to true. Okay, then we have logger. Nope. Theme, nope. Advanced options, nope, nope, nope. So all of these, I don't think we need them. And I think we should be good. Now what we need to do is, for the Google provider, we need to set up the Google application. So providers, here we have Google. So here we have protocols OAuth, where we can add that. And then this one also, we would have to create the credentials API. So when we give the options, we need to provide the client ID, the Google client secret, then authorization, params, consent. We won't be using those ones. It's fine. So I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new app in my Google Cloud. So what you can do is you can go to console.cloud.google.com. I'm going to paste this in the chat as well. And in here, you can create a new application. So I'm going to go here. Where are my applications? So search a project. If I click this right here, I should be able to say new project. This one can be called, and I'm going to zoom in a bit, next or threads, next app, no organization, create the app. So it's now creating my application. Okay, now that we have this, I can select the project. And then also what I can do is, give me 1 second. So then I can also go ahead and say, hey, I've selected the project. Now I'm working in the threads application. So now I should be able to go to APIs and services, if I'm correct. And then we have credentials. And then here we can then create credentials, but I'm going to also skim through the documentation as well. So when you go to the Google API console, we can use the server side or JavaScript web app, the web client type. Do not use this, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So in this case, we can use the web client type to create an OAuth client, and we should be good. So what we need in our application is the client ID and the client secret. So this is what we want. So let's go ahead and create one. So here we should have a client ID and a client secret. So create credentials. We should be creating a API key, I believe. Let's see. Let's also look at the documentation as well. So in this case, okay, we go to the credentials, blah, blah, blah. Do, 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 do. Okay, we'll see. So now that we do have an API key. I'm going to obviously delete this later on. So we do have the API key. We would also have to create a client ID. So we'll see. Create conditions, enable APIs. Am I missing something? No. So when I go to this API key, let's see. So we have the API key only, but we don't have the credentials. So we need to create a client ID. Edit API key. How do I add a client ID? Is it no? Go to auth console and then generate the key. Is it this one? No. No, that's not the one. Wait a second. So in this case, if I go back here, then I should still have APIs and services. Uh, is this not the one? No. Let's see which link this connects to. So this is the protocol's OAuth. And if I wanted to go to API console, then I should be able to say server side or JavaScript web apps. So in this case, I should be able to go to API library. So in here we have OAuth client ID. Is that not the one? So credentials, we should have configure consent screen. Remember, definitely missing something here because it used to be there. So go to the credentials page. That is the credentials, API/credentials. Yes. Then it says click create credentials, OAuth client ID. So create, and this is the one. This is the one. Okay. Then I can say a client ID is used to identify blah 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 on. To create an auth key, you must first configure your consent screen. Okay, let's have a look at that. So the user type would be external. Then we can do create because anyone should be able to use it. The app name would be Next Threads app. I can say user support email is going to be my email. App logo, we don't need that. Domain, no. Let's also give my email, and then I should be able to save and continue. All right, so now that we have this here, do we need scopes? Let's see. So for the scopes, do we have to explicitly say email? Yes. Say your primary Google account email address. What would I need apart from that? Maybe profile. So userinfo.profile. I think those are the only things that I need. And then I can update those. I think those are by default available. So yes, maybe we don't need to do that. Then we can save and continue. We have a summary here. We can go back to the dashboard. And in this case, we should have and then in the credentials, let's create now. So create credentials, OAuth client ID, application type, web application. We can say next app. And then we have authorized JavaScript origins and authorized redirect origins. I think we would still have to, let's give it 3000/API/auth. I think that is the one that we want, but we will see. For use with requests from the browser. And URLs must not contain path or end with. Oh, okay. Then that doesn't make sense. So we don't want that here at the moment. Authorize redirect URLs. Do I need to put that here as well? I don't think so. Maybe. We'll see. Okay, then we can say create. Okay, so now we have the client ID right here, and we can also use the client secret as well. So we can go to our threads application, and then here we can go to our env, and we can say Google client ID. So here we have this value, and we have the Google client ID set to this. Then we have Google client secret set to this guy, and we should be good. So now that we have everything, we should be able to run this app. Cool. Let's see. So now that we have this, we have set this up. We should be able to say section. All right. We put the next auth stuff there. And where did we have the providers? Right here. Cool. And then finally, we need to do auth callback Google. For development, this is the one that we should have. So let's fix that as well. It was not here, actually here. And then this app, we should be able to say the URLs is this. So redirect URLs should be good. So now that we have this, let's have a look at if this works. So once we have this, we can put all the things here. Blah, blah, blah. No, was that the one? No, wait a second. Yes. So localhost, development, provider options, blah, blah, blah. And once we have this, we should be able to have, cool, this makes sense. All right. Do we need more stuff? I don't think so. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I'm just looking at if we need more middlewares or not, because authentication itself is, it's sort of something that already takes its own like tutorial. But if I go to my app, which is right here, and if I go to API/auth/sign in, now let's see what happens. There we go. So by default, when we have this implemented, it gives us this nice little button. And if I go here, this should ask me about my account. And if I go here, then it takes me to my application. So the authentication with Google is working. Yay! The only thing is now I need to get that information from the next auth to or from next auth to my front end application, and there should be a way of doing it on the React side as well. So in this case, we have the client API and we have the REST API. So we'll look into that. So in this case, we have something called use session, which should be able to get the use session. So I'm going to actually make that. But then what I'll do is I'll go to warm up my coffee because it gets cold every time I code. So I'll take a break. But what we have so far is you can see that we can use the use session in our client to actually show the user. So let's actually implement that really quickly. So we have our Next.js application that shows a lot of information already with the user. I have the debugging enabled, so I can also see that information as well. But if I summarize what we did so far really quickly is this. Where did you go? So what we did was we installed NextAuth. That was the first step. Then we went to Google. Then we created a new application by clicking here and then clicking create new project. Once we created the new project, we went to credentials. And in the credentials, we went to create credentials and OAuth client ID. It asked us to first implement the consent screen. So we did fill all these values. So you first go here, you go through the process and add information like your email, the name of the application. And once you're done with that, then you go to the credentials, and then you essentially go here and create credentials, OAuth client ID, application type, web application. You fill the add URI to localhost something something. Oops, close call out. And this should be exactly equal to this documentation right here. Where are you? Where did you go? Okay, providers, Google is the one. So in here, this should be the exact URL, callback Google. And then you put that in here, authorized redirect URLs. And this is what you should do. Once you go through this, then everything starts working. Okay. So that's what I've just done for just setting up the sort of backend side of it. So I hope this makes sense. Oops, let's keep this open. So now going back to the client side, so this is on the front end. So I need to use the use session from NextAuth React, and then I should be able to get the session, and then I can also sort of work with that. So now if I go to my application and if I go to my home page, let's see. So this is the page TSX, app page TSX, and you can always see the breadcrumb here, app page TSX. So this one has a bunch of comments, which are right now hard coded. Do I even use those? Yes, I do. Then we also have sort of a header, welcome to Threads app. But that's in my layout, the header. Yes. So the header that we see right here, next app, and here we have home and about. How about we just create a sort of image right here from the session? So for that, we would have to have the use session. But the problem is if I try to make this, let me actually show you. If I go ahead and do something like, hey, import use session from next React, and then if I go here and say const session equals use session, then the problem with this one is that my server is gonna crash, because you can see React context is unavailable in the server components, because we cannot use session, which is a client side function or client side functionality on the backend side. We can't do that. So if I want something to happen with this session, I want to create a client side component. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this whole header into its client side component. So this will not be rendered automatically, or I could just go ahead and in this nav UL, I can create a component that shows the user profile or user image. And we can also talk about that in as well. So here we could say something like user profile image. This component doesn't exist so far, but we are going to create that. So we're going to go to components. Here we can say user profile image.tsx. We're going to create a React component. We're going to go ahead and use the use session from NextAuth React. We're going to paste that right here. And then here now we can say const u or session equals use session. Once you have done this, now I can use now I can use the information from the profile. So having said that, I need to remove it from here. I need to remove the use session from my layout TSX. And then I can import the user profile image from the components, and everything is nice. Not really, because I still would have those errors. Why? Because this user profile image is still a server-side component, which is the default in Next.js. So I need to tell Next.js that, hey, this is going to be a client-side component, so don't render it on server-side, which means no session on server-side. And now when I do this, it should work. It says user profile image, node modules, use session. Use session must be wrapped in session provider. Aha, interesting. So I also need to wrap everything in the session provider. So I can go here and say, hey, this guy. Oh, but then would I have to? Let's see. Let's go to the documentation first. So I'm going to go to here and client side, and okay. So this one is supposed to be in pages app.js, the session provider. And that is how it would work. So in this case, we have the app, we get the session, and then the session provider, and then the component. So I think this would go into the layout.tsx. So let's see the layout. I'm hoping that this wouldn't cause errors, but let's see. I'm gonna save this. In here, I'm gonna actually use the session provider. I think we also get the session right here. And this is gonna then be session provider from NextAuth React. But I think this will cause errors, to be honest. I'm pretty sure this is gonna cause errors. We'll see. Session. I'm going to use any, don't judge me at the moment. I just want to see if this works. And then if I save this, React context is unavailable, that's fine. If I put everything or this header inside my session provider, does this work? No, it doesn't. So that means this is still has to be a client side component, and then it should work. Hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes it a bit difficult, but we will see. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll see. Does it talk about next 13? No, it doesn't. Really good. Server side, no. Okay. So if I go with the page app.js, I can use the use session in a component. But then if I go to this is pages protected.jsx, we don't want to talk about that at the moment. We have the app.jsx, which takes but this can't work on the server side. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do. Let's see, we'll figure it out. Get provider, blah, 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 sign in. Now, let's not go there. Okay, so let's try this now. So we're gonna go to our user in here. Let's try to see, because if I go with session provider to every session, I mean, I could use the use context multiple times. But then this session is supposed to only be at places where we have the header. So then it doesn't make sense, because the easiest way for me would be to just use this session in the component that I want to use it at. So for example, I could go here, and then in here I can use the session provider. So if I go here, but then wait a second. No, I can't have this and that also. Maybe we would have to then have the header itself using it. But then how would I use that in the pages? Wait a second. So let's do some Googling. So next 13 session provider. With next auth. Let's see. Session provider. Okay. So then if I do, the problem is if I go with page tsx and do use client, then I'm opting out of server side rendering, which I don't want to do. So you have a root layout, then you have a body. You have to use client because React create context. Yeah, this is the part which I don't really like, because I don't want to opt out of. Okay, although I struggle a bit because it appears there's no documentation for next 13 plus next auth yet. That makes sense. Okay, but you did use client. I don't want you to use client. Okay, so in this case, we have a file called session.ts, which uses next.auth to react. Oh, next.auth next. Okay. This sort of makes sense. Let's see. So this guy uses something like this. If I go to app, there should be layout. The layout doesn't use. Okay, does not use session provider. That is good. Let's open that into VS Code. And let's see. Okay, session provider. Okay, no session. That's good. Do we have a session.ts? Yes, we have. So in this case, we have auth options, lib auth, get server session. And then where is this get current user being used? So the person uses it in page.tsx, dashboard, 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 app editor. So all the pages that we have actually use the same function. And then you get the user. And then if there's no user, you redirect. Otherwise, then you do a post. So everything is then rendered on the server side. That sort of makes sense. Do you think we should be using server side rendering or client side rendering? Because there's a difference between both of them. The coolest would be to use server side rendering. So everything is rendered automatically and we have the fastest user experience possible. Otherwise, we could go with the client side rendering as well. What do you think? Because this is actually what I would love to have. Get server side session and then sort of rendering it on the backend. So maybe we can go with this one. So we can go with session.ts. And in this case, we could also have the get server session and then we have auth options. What are the auth options? If I go there, I think these are from yeah, exactly this one. So adopter, Prisma adopter, session, JWT, pages sign in login, providers get a provider, email provider, callbacks, blah blah blah. So this is these are the options which are used in I think when you use the client side. No, wait a second. Yeah, this one. So they're used in here and then it's used in the other place as well. Okay, so let's do that then. So in this case, I can actually go and say, hey, I have my API route TS. And in here, I can also have sort of a folder structure that says lib. We can move the session to lib. We can also go here and say auth.ts. Then we can move all these options from here to here. So we can say in the auth.ts file, export auth or export const auth options equals this guy. Then we can use this provider there as well. So here, just moving things around. This guy should also be here. And now we have auth options that we can work with. We can also type these options. So this should be, if I go to the options file, which is right here, this is next auth options. So let's also import this right here, next auth options. And then we can go ahead and here say auth options. And this should be fine. And then in here, we can also say auth options. And this should also be fine. Now that we have this, we can go ahead and instead of the user profile image, use session, we can actually use, if I go right there to, let's say, in my layout component, we should be using user profile image. So in here, in the header, we have the user profile image. And here I can get the actual user, so to say. So then I should be saying something like const session equals get user or get current user. And this would be user itself. Let's see if this doesn't fail. Okay, so we do use the user right here, and then we pass the user as user to the user profile image. This user is of type name, email, and image. So sort of that type. That's interesting. And then if I go here, I can also say const or type props equals, and then here we can expect a user that has an email. We should be able to just copy the types from right here. So this should be promise, email, blah, blah, blah. So something like this. But then it could be either this or undefined. So then we can expect this component to receive a user because we are going to say the types here is props. Then we can say if there is no user, then we can say return button that says log in. But if there is a user, then we can use the user image here. So we can say a div here, and then we can say an image that has a source set to the user image. So user dot image. And that is, I think, what we will do. So if I go to my threads application here, you can see that there's no user. So it returns us back with the login. And let's also pass the user from here. So this should be await current user, which means that I would also then have to use an async and root layout. Let's see if this works. And now you see my image. Yay! So we are able to get the image rendered from the server. So if I inspect it, the fun part here is that this whole thing that it comes from the server, it doesn't come from the client. So if I go and disable the JavaScript, let's see what happens. Disable JavaScript. So my JavaScript is disabled at the moment. And if I refresh the page, you can see still this image gets rendered because the HTML that comes from the backend is rendered automatically. So everything happens on the backend. The front end, the browser, I have disabled the JavaScript. Still, you can see the image right here because it comes from the backend. Super cool, super nice. I love it so far. So now that I have this running, I should rather be using the next image. So we should be using the image tag from next with the src. Doesn't it use the var image? What? Width, height, HTML image element. But that's not the, oops. That's not the image one I want. I want the image from next. Next image. Source. Where's my source? I have so many things here. Source should be user.image. And we should have a width. Yeah. Then we should have a width. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. And then we also have the alt that says user profile or user avatar. So this one says src null is not assignable of type string. So this is going to be always there, the user image itself. If it's not there, then we're going to try to find something different, but let's stick with this one. So if I go here now, refresh, because I have disabled that. Let's fix that. Enable JavaScript. So in here now we have missing required width property. So let's add that. If I do a class of or class name of width 24, no, that's 96 pixels. How about 14? Let's go with that. So width is going to be 56. And we also want a height. So height is going to be 56. And what else are we missing? So it says this host name, this is not configured in your Next config. So we need to tell Next that it's okay to fetch information from Google images. So we're gonna sort of allow them. Okay, so now that we have this, we can add the images, remote patterns. So next config, next.config.js. And here we should have images, remote patterns, and here we should have this configured as the Google one. So Google user context.com, I think we can add this. And we can say the path name could be anything. Because what is the URL if I look at the image itself? Can I see the image? Or does it? No, it doesn't give me that. All right, let's put this one for now. The host name, this one should be there. So this one. And now let's see. Yeah, my server is dead. Run dev. And let's fetch this again. Compiling the page at the server. And now it says blah, blah, blah. It's not configured in next config, blah, blah, blah. But I did configure it. No? Let's see. But images, remote patterns, h3, host name is this guy, right? Port, I don't need to have a port, but the path name, what is the default value of this? So we don't need a path name. But this should work. Unless I'm missing something. So next config has an image which can have remote patterns, and each remote pattern should be having blah 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 port path name. Oops. Work maybe. Yeah, there we go. So now we have the image right there. X attributes from the server, data, blah blah blah. Oh, but that's a different extension, so I'm not sure why this comes in. We can ignore that for the moment. But you can see the image right here. So let's also sort of style this a bit. So in this case, I'm going to say, hey, this div is essentially having a class name. Let's say width 14, height 14, rounded full. And that should show us an image that is rounded. Rounded full. Oh, the image itself has to be also class name, rounded, or overflow. No, we can just make this guy an overflow hidden. And there we go. And then we can also make sure that maybe we can also do this. So the class name here can be object fit or object contain. So this one is this. And now we can also make sure that there's no space between, but rather something like this. So we need to also make sure that this user profile and the nav links, they come together in one single space. So in here, we can also have this inside another span. And this can go just like this. And there we go. Now we have an issue because we need to have a class name here that says flags, items, center, and gap 4. And there we go. So if I'm logged in, then it shows me my image. But if I'm not logged in, then it shows me the login button. So I'm going to use the sign out now. But I'm going to also replace the battery of my camera. And then we'll take a maybe 10 minutes break. So let me quickly update the camera battery. All right, I'm back here. So now I should be able to click this and do a do sort of the render. Now that I think about it, since I need an interaction right here, I would have to make this guy a client side component. So I would have to do something like use client. So this should still work. And you see now there's a difference, because if I disable JavaScript, disable, you're gonna see that if I refresh now, wait a second, I need to save this first. Huh. How does this come from the backend? Oh yes, obviously it's all right. So it renders on the backend, of course, but on the client side, then nothing happens. So let's make this use client. Then if I have this as well, I'm gonna make this guy a button as well. So if I refresh this now, enable JavaScript, refresh. Now this is a button. What I want to do when this button gets clicked is I want to say on click, sign out. And this basically means that I would just make a simple fetch call, nothing too fancy. So here I can say const sign out equals, I was thinking. And then in here, let's go to the client side API, and here we should have a sign out. So sign out means that I can say something like sign out from Next React, and I can just click that function. So I don't even need this guy. So I can say, hey, import sign out from Next React, call the sign out function, and that should be it. So then I should have a method that uses sign out. And then this button should also then say on click, and then this should run sign in from Next React. So make sure to import sign in and sign out both. And now if I go to my application, you should be able to see that now if I click this guy, it should sign me out automatically. And now you see the login button, right? And if I click, and if I click log in, then it takes me to Google. I sign in and I'm here. Cool. So now that we have this, we are able to now create a user in our database when we have the user signed in. And then when we are actually about to create a comment, then we can obviously do the same thing. So in this case, if you look at the comment TSX right here, or actually the home page, which is right here, we should be able to see the session here as well. So here we can say async function home const session equals get current user. So we're going to say user, and in this case the user can be undefined. So we are going to say if we have a user, then we are going to show the form, otherwise we will not show the form. So here we can say user, and in here if that user exists, then we should have this right here, and this should be a boolean. And yeah, I think that should be it. So in this case, let's also format this. So user and session. So in this case, you can see right now I'm able to see the form. If I click log out, then I should ideally not be able to see that form. Oh, but then I would have to make this a client side component. Oh, okay, of course. But if I refresh, then I will not see it. Or will I see it still? Oh, wait. That makes sense. So now if I refresh, you can see here, I don't see the form. If I log in, go here, then I see the form. If I log out, would I see the form or not? No, I won't see the form. So in this case, every time we click login, we go to the login page, we see the form. If I log out, I don't see the form. Easy peasy. So now this works pretty flawlessly. We can go ahead and do more stuff now. So now, one of the things that I also want to do is when we are looking at these comments, when we have the user here, we should be able to pass that as a prop to the comment itself. And that would also make sure that if we have a reply button, we can, we can do it the other way. So if we have a comment here, and then for example, we have these things like toggle replying, blah, blah, blah. But in here, we can say if the user doesn't exist, then we try to log the user in. So for example, if this is the reply, if I click it, if I'm not logged in, it should log me in automatically. So here, what we could do is we can say, hey, this is going to have a session, use session from the next package, because this is a client-side component. We use the React. And once I have the session, then I can say, all right, if I'm trying to click reply, which clicks and says toggle replying. So when I say toggle replying on clicking on reply, before I change anything at all, I would like to see if the session dot data dot user. If this doesn't exist, then what we should do, sign in. And this we also bring from Next React. So now what would happen is that, and we should also say return, so it doesn't toggle anything. Now it says blah, 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 debug enable, comment, what use session must be wrapped in the session provider. Oh, now that becomes an interesting problem. But then, aha, I'm thinking. Hmm. I would eventually have to go with the session provider at some point. Otherwise, I would have to use the thinking. So then that means I would have to actually pass the user as a session right there. All right, then let's do that. So in this case, we can't have this, but we would have to pass the user as a session. All right, let's see one more thing. So session has a user of type. The user is of type, yeah, obviously the email, image, and blah, 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 undefined. So how about we create a type? Let's see. Interfaces, we can say user.interface. We would also have to say export interface session user, which has what exactly? It has an email, and I would have to, or I think we should have something from Next itself. No, we don't. So session user, if I go here and if I mouse over this guy, this doesn't has its own type. So we might as well just create it. So session user is going to be this, and this is going to be a type that is either all of this or type. So in here, we can then go ahead and say, hey, this is going to receive a user, and that's going to be session user. Then I can take this out from user, and then I can say, hey, if there's no user, then we do sign in. Otherwise, we do sign out. But I think there's going to be a problem if, we'll see. Use session goes away. Use session here goes away as well. So the compilation, no errors whatsoever. Page CSX has to pass the user. So I'm going to pass the user down the line. No compilation errors. So if I try to click reply now, it takes me to the sign in page. I go back, refresh, click reply, takes me to the sign in page. This is what I wanted. And if I hit sign in with Google, now I'm logged in. Now if I click reply, you can see that it doesn't take me to the sign in page. Okay, cool. So now that we have worked through this, one of the other things that we want to do is to be able to create a user, and then sort of if the user doesn't exist in our database, then we are going to create that. And if it does, then we'll just work with that. So in this case, the next auth itself, I want to search for the database with adapters, custom adapters, blah, blah, blah. So let's see, custom adapter, MongoDB adapter. So in this case, what I want to do is to be able to use the sessions with MongoDB. So we have Mongo client, blah, 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 DB URI, client process, configure auth, blah, blah, blah. We add the MongoDB. Then we should have the name of the MongoDB collection. Okay. So then we should be able to create users automatically in this case. All right, so let's go with this one. So I'm gonna install this, but before that, let's actually commit the code, and then we are going to take a little break, and then we are going to come back. Okay. So let me know in the chat, and first let's commit, and then I'm gonna ask the question. Right. So let's go with this. Let's see next config. We already fixed that. Next auth. We added a bunch of things to the layout. Page.tsx, route.ts. Okay. Use client, user. We have the user profile, image. Then we've got the user interface, auth. Okay. And then the session TS. Cool. Makes sense. So git status, git add, git commit, implement next. Or we can also say right now work in progress. Implement next auth. We'll use MongoDB adapter now to work to connect with the DB. We'll take it from there. So let's keep this. I don't think I have a remote at the moment. Yes. Cool. So now that we have this, I'm gonna actually take a little break, maybe 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and then we'll continue with the rest of the stuff. So see you in a bit. मेरी पानी है. Okay, I'm back. I'm back a bit early, but we can start. Mm-hmm. Alhamdulillah. All right. So far, what we've done is we've implemented authentication, but we haven't added the users. So one way of that could be us actually adding it ourselves, or we could look at the MongoDB adapter for Node.js and see if that makes it work automatically. So let's quickly install the package. So we're gonna go ahead and do this. So here we have npm install auth MongoDB adapter MongoDB. Is there no Mongoose adapter though? Mongoose, no. Okay, we'll go with this one, but we are also going to use next Mongoose later on. All right, so now that we have this, or should we use Prisma? If we use Prisma, then we can actually work with. Then we should be able to work with users as well. To be honest. Mm-hmm. Thinking. Should we use Prisma or not? What do you say? Type in the chat. Prisma or not? Because I think when we use Prisma, we do sort of go into an abstraction which is a bit questionable, so to say. With Mongoose, it seems a bit more easier, but we could still go with that, to be honest. What do you think? Mm-mm. Prisma generate dev. Mm-mm. This one, however, uses MongoDB. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm. Mm-hmm. I think we can use Prisma, to be honest. It would make, first, it would make it consistent for both using within the app and within the auth. So I think we should probably go with Prisma, which means I'm going to uninstall what I just installed. So uninstall MongoDB and adapter. Now I'll go and do this. So let's quickly install the Prisma client and auth Prisma adapter. So you can install it from the documentation. I'm going to share the link below as well. And then we also need the Prisma for save for the dev environment. So we are going to say npm install prisma dev. Then we are going to modify our next auth file to add Prisma adapter and Prisma client, both of them. So let's add that. I'm going to go to my API auth next auth route.ts, or actually auth options in the auth file. Inside here, let's import both of them. Then we're going to create a new Prisma client, just like this. Then we're going to use the adapter set to Prisma. And that is supposed to be right here. Is it supposed to be there? Next auth adapter Prisma. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh no, it's not supposed to be there. It's gonna be in, but then it should be in the route.ts. No. So when we use next auth, we do use providers, but then Prisma. I think no, it should be the part of RTS. So why does it cry though? So if I go here, say adapter, shouldn't this say mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it should be that. So if I start with the adapter, should be Prisma adapter. This takes Prisma client, so to say. Expected time comes from property adapter, which is here in auth options. So here it says import adapters, core adapter is not assignable to type import. Next auth adapter. Create user in is incompatible. Says type user, omit adapter user ID, available adapter user is not. Oh, the only thing that is a difference is this one. So undefined is not assignable to type user. Can I change this? No, create user, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I need to use a particular version of Prisma because this is not, this doesn't seem valid anymore. Let's see. PMGS. So this guy should have issues. Next 13. Closed. Next auth, next is deprecated, blah, blah, blah. Duplicate of this guy. But this is the, no. Let's have a look at the Prisma itself. Next auth, Prisma adapter should link us. Let's see. Next auth, Prisma adapter incompatible types. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. Is that so? No, I don't think so. but that doesn't make sense. So if I do this, then if I do as adapter, this will fix it, but it's a bit hacky, but it seems like this will fix it. Okay, anyways, let's see. npm run dev. So now that we have the Prisma setup done, let's add the Prisma database, or the Prisma schema rather. So this is how the Prisma database should look like, or the Prisma schema should look like. So we are going to create I think we should probably need to do npx Prisma init, or can we do it? All right, let's do this. So let's go with Prisma JS, next generation, blah, 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 quick start. We need to do npx Prisma init, exactly. And in here, we can say MongoDB. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So here we have MongoDB set already. And now I need to just copy paste the one that we have right here. So let's copy this guy. Mm-hmm. The only thing that we would change is we don't need this or this. We don't need this. And now we only need to change the ID and the user ID, blah, blah, blah. So in here, as you can see on the documentation of MongoDB support, it says that for MongoDB, the ID is string would have to be this. So ID default auto map ID DB object ID. So every ID that we have, let's actually do this and this so we can always see those. This is going to be the one. Then we have right here default. Then we have this guy. And then wherever it says db.string, we need to say db.text and user ID to db.object ID. So here, wherever it says user ID, we need to say db.object ID. So this should be db.object ID. What? But this should still be a string. And then the user ID that we had, db.object ID. Okay. So now that we have this, we can change the string db.text to db.string. This guy, this guy, this guy. All right. A lot of reds are gone. The only thing remaining is this one. Invalid model. MongoDB models require exactly one identity field annotated with the ID. What? No. Verification token has an identifier with a string, token, string unique, expires date time, and the unique is identifier and token. But MongoDB models require exactly one with the ID. Oh, but then we can't have verification token. We can't have this one, but we'll see. So npm or npx Prisma format. This will throw us errors. Like this one is not okay. I think we could still say that this should have an ID. But then we can't really say that, okay, that's fine. Then the unique constraint is here, identifier token, that's fine. So then we can do npx Prisma format. There we go. And now we can do npx Prisma generate. And that should also generate the client for us. But the only thing that we have to work on now is to have the database URL. But we are going to fix that in a bit. So now that we have the Prisma adapter for this, I think we should be good, right? Yeah, I think we should be good. So providers, Prisma adapter, cool. Now all we need to do is to work with the Mongo database URL. So Mongo Atlas, switch to here. So I already worked with sort of a database that I had for the Threads app, but I'm going to change the database for the Next.js. So in here, what I want to do is I want to create a database called Threads Next, and additional references. No, nothing, to be honest. Is this required? I hope not. Can I create it? No. Can I say comment is going to be a collection? Or I don't even have to do that. I can just give the URL. So in this case, I can go ahead and say, there should be, if you go to your MongoDB database or Mongo Atlas, this is where I have my database. So just a quick introduction on this one. You sign up with Atlas, you get a free account. Then you create a cluster or a project with a new project. You can give it a name, and then essentially you can take it from there. So for example, in this case, I could say, hey, I have, I don't know, we can say Next.js apps, create next, members and set permission. I don't think we need to add any member, create project. And then I can add a database. So build a database with an M0, create car, verify. And then we have, how would you like to authenticate your connection? So I first have to create a user with the read and write authentication. So I can have a user, for example, say Ahsan Ayaz, and I have an auto-generated password, which I'll copy now. I'll probably delete this project later on, but we'll see. My local environment, cloud environment. So this one is, use this to add network IP address to IP list. From my local environment, I think that's fine. I will use the add my current IP, and then I can go ahead and finish and close. Go to database. And there we go. Now we have a connection string. So I can click connect. I can go drivers. And here is my URL. So I can copy this guy, but I would have to also have my password as well. So I'm going to go to my schema, or not schema, but my env. And is that the one? No. I think this was created automatically. I don't know how, but I think it was created automatically. But we're going to create an env. We can say database password or database URL. So this one has to have the password and the rest of the stuff. So I'm going to actually replace this with this whole URL. And in here, I can say threads next. This is going to be my database, and I can copy the password right here. And then we have this setup. So now I have this. I can actually go ahead and run this. So let's rerun the application. So npm run dev. And this should make us make it possible for us to connect with the actual database. And when we create our sessions or work with our application, it should make it easier. So in this case, I can now go to the next app, and I can quickly go and refresh. And let's see what happens now. Alrighty, now it says login. Nothing to be worried about. So what I want to do is to be able to side by side see my database and sort of work with that. Where's my database? Here's my database. So threads app is right here. We have the database. If I look at the collections now, you can see there's nothing at the moment here in the databases. Um, and then if I start doing login, takes me to Google. I save this. I get back my user session. If I go right here, if I refresh this, there we go. So you can see that Next.js automatically created a bunch of things. It created an account for me, auth Google blah blah blah. It created a session for me, and it also created a user for me. And this is essentially what I wanted, right? So you can see here that I don't have to create my own user anymore myself because I used sort of the adapter with next auth. So when you do that, you get the users out of the box, and I don't have to worry about that. So I have my user created already. Now all I need to do is to be able to create comments. So what I can do now is I can go to my app, and in here now I can start building the API for comments. So what we discussed initially was this right here. So API comments, blah blah blah, but I don't even need this API post API users now because I don't have to. I can just use next auth for this. So API slash comments, this is where we start our magic with. So what does our comment look like? When we looked at it in the beginning, each comment had to have the text, the user ID, and the parent ID in this case. So if I have to create a particular comment, then I should be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is in the API file, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it comments. And in here, then I can create a route.ts. And in here, then I can start working with the route. So Next.js APIs, if you go here, you can say export const get, and I forgot my coffee again. I'm gonna be right back. I need to warm this up. So be right back. Be right back. All right, I'm back. So now that we're talking about it, could you write in the comments if you are finding this tutorial or this stream valuable or helpful so far? Is it helpful? In the meantime, let's go from here. So get, we're gonna return some equals. What happened to my JavaScript TypeScript? So in here, I should say return next response dot JSON. I don't know, message, and here, hello there. So now that I have this route, I can go to my app. In here, I have threads. I can duplicate this and I can say now slash API slash comments. And there you go. I can see the response right here. So what I'm going to do is within the same file, I'm also going to create some sort of, have you used the curl, or what's it called? What's it called? The extension that we use for curl something something. Curl to XJS? No. What is it called? Let's see. I should have this installed in my extensions. Mm, mm, mm. REST client. That's the one. I wasn't thinking about CURD. So this is a really good REST client that I can use right now within my VS Code, and it makes things much easier. So I'm gonna actually copy this guy, go back. So in here, what I can do now, I have this endpoint. So this is equal to Postman, but I don't want to use Postman, so I'm gonna just say um, REST client, and in here I can say comments .htp. I think that's the file extension that they expect us to have. Let me look at this again. So the file name would be yes, basic auth, blah blah blah. Yeah, HTTP and REST file extensions are supported. So we can use either HTTP or REST. Let's use REST. Okay, so in this case, I can use this right here. So I can say post or get HTTP, and here I can say localhost 3000 slash comments. Are there variables supported here? No. No. Uh, uh, uh. What do you call base URL? Yeah. So here we have this. Cool. I expected something to be like this. So some of you actually asked, hey, what are you creating for senior engineers? So this is what it is. This is actually what you would want to do as a senior engineer. So have a REST file, use the REST client extension, and then yeah, code like this. So we have the base URL that says HTTP localhost 3000 slash API. And then what do? Then you can use that right here in the get calls, just like this. And you can also have comment IDs, blah, blah, blah. So really nice setup. So name login, blah, blah, blah. Let's copy this guy and copy this guy as well. Cool. So in this case, we should have something like this. So in this case, we can say get comments. This should have a get of base URL slash comments. Or you could also have the base URL having localhost 3000 is fine. Then you have base comments. Content type is not required there, and then that's pretty much it. YouTube voice missing. Hanif Ahmed KN. Hanif, try to refresh your browser. I can see the video go or an audio both going perfectly fine. So try to refresh your browser. Okay, so now that we have this, oh, we want to also get the auth. Then how do we? Why don't we? Okay, then let's do this, right? So auth. No, this should be auth. Do we get a token? Because let's see. Oh, let's try this actually. I'm gonna delete those at the moment. So this should be API slash auth slash user. Is that the one? Let's try to send the request. This action with a not supposed to be next. Let's go to this guy client. Where was it? Nope. Client API, get session, sign in, sign out. REST API, sorry. REST API is auth sign in provider, callback provider, get. Oh, this is the one, auth session. So that means I can go to my code here, do API slash auth session, right? Then what do I do? If I send this, do I get a session? Set cookie, blah, 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 gzip, close, and I don't get anything back. What if I do post? No. Mm-hmm. 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 Can I do it in the REST client? I don't think so. If I do it like this, then yeah, I would have to, no, I would have to go through all of that. No, let's not do it at the moment. So we can do something like get comments and delete this guy. Auth token. I don't think I'm going to use that at the moment, but I'll use it later on. Content type application JSON. Here it should be API/comments, or I could use API right here. So API/comments. And then what I should be able to do is, this is like get comments, and I can copy this to also say post comments. And this is going to be then post content type application JSON. I don't need that in get. So this is how it looks so far. We have a base URL. We have get comments. If I click that, nothing would work, or actually it would say hello. Hello there. Yes. This is the API call that we have just implemented. Post doesn't exist. So if I run this, then it should not work. So if I say send request, you can see 4 or 5 method not allowed. So by default, if you put a 3 hash in there, they sort of differentiate between different calls. So this is how I would build my REST client and test my APIs. So get comments right now, if I send the request, you can see it says message hello there. So let's make this better. So in this case, I should be able to get the messages from, or get the comments from my database. So in this case, what I would do right here is I would say, hey, I want to get and this is going to be an async function. So what I want to do is say const comments equals await, and then I have to use Prisma. So I don't have Prisma at the moment, so I would have to use Prisma. But if I want to do that, I'm going to have to look at the documentation, because I actually forgot how to do that. This one is the Prisma. Then we do blah, blah, blah. Creates a new user record, blah, blah, blah. But then when we have, this one, Prisma client. So I need to have the client, and then I can quickly go ahead, and I would also have to do the Prisma disconnect. Do I have to do connect? No, I don't think so. Right? No. And I would also want to see if Next.js Prisma has some other thing as well. So set up your version progress database. Don't want it. Generate client, db push. This is one of the things that I did not do. You also want to run npx prisma db push, just to make sure that all of our data is there. Yes, allow access to it. What? Collection verification token. So it says your data indexes are low, now in sync with your Prisma schema. Done. Done it. Do it again. Let's see if everything works. Prisma client. Query engine Windows DLL node. I have no clue what that means, but I think it should be good. Okay, so now that we have the Prisma client, I want to see the client generate, blah, blah, blah. This is what I wanted to see. So if I have already a client, I want to use that. Otherwise, I won't use it. So in this case also, then what I would want to do is, in my lib folder, I would want to create a Prisma file, because I only want to create the client one time only and not in every file. So Prisma client has Prisma client global.prisma. Element explicitly has IVN because of global this has no index signature. As Prisma client. Should it be good? No. I mean, what I wanted to do was not Boolean. Global.prisma. Okay, then that can't be fixed. I would assume. Let's see if this starts throwing errors. I think it would not, but we'll see. If I change this to, no, that doesn't work. So this doesn't work. We can also say something like const global prisma equals global dot prisma as prisma client. But can we use an associative signature here? No, I think that would also not work. Yes, do it. Okay. No, then we'll leave it, not to go too much into it. Okay, so now that we have this, wherever we are using Prisma client, which is in auth, we should be able to import the Prisma client from there. So we should be saying Prisma is the new client. So in this, let's say rename Prisma, no, Prisma client, right? And then here we can then say await Prisma client. No, where was this? The auth file. So then we don't need to do it. Or all right, let's rename this to Prisma. So Prisma remains Prisma. Then we can go here and say, hey, in the auth, we don't want this guy. We do, however, want Prisma to be here. So now we are going to import Prisma from our lib. So add import from Prisma. Yes. Then in here as well, no, not here, but in the comments file, here also we can now do Prisma and we can import from app lib Prisma. This is important. Now that we do this, we can say Prisma dot, and now you can see all the functions or all the models, and this is what we wanted. So we want to have comments there as well, which we haven't thought about yet. So what we want to do is to be able to say something like comment dot find many, but we can't do it at the moment because comment does not exist in our schema. So we're going to go to our Prisma slash schema.prisma. And in here, you see account, you see session, a bunch of them we just copy pasted. We're going to create our own now. So model comment is going to have a bunch of things. First of all, it's going to have a unique ID. Then it's going to have a text, which is going to be of type comment. No comment, but rather string. Then it's going to have a user ID, which is also going to be of type string, but it's going to be similar to this guy, DB object ID. So string, oh, let's fix this. Then, and don't worry about the formatting. We are going to format this in a bit. So if I go to my Xally draw, this is what we discussed. Text, user ID and parent ID. So in here we have text, user ID, parent ID. Okay. And each comment also has a number of likes. So we can add those as well. So likes is going to be an int. And I think the default value of this would be 0. Okay. Then we would also have a parent. And this is a relation. So this is going to be a relation with comment itself. So every comment can have a parent comment as well, which means that we would have a parent ID, which is going to be string, and it's also going to be DB object ID. And then in here, since this is a relation, we're going to have to create a relation among that. So I'm going to quickly go here, relation field, and if I go to the relation itself, this is how you define a relation. So you say, hey, this is the relation, the field is this, and that reference is that. So this is a relation. The fields is going to be parent ID, and it references what really? It references the ID of the parent. So in here we have the comment itself, but this is going to be of type comment. So parent is going to be a comment. The fields would be the parent ID, and that references the ID. All right, error validating field parent in model comment. The relation field parent on model comment is missing in its opposite relation field on the model comment. And what we need to do here is we need to run npm, and this can also, no, wait a second. And this would also be this. No, this. All right, let's do Prisma or npx Prisma format. No, we have the same error. So in this case, it says da 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 da. If they're part of the same relation, add the same relation name for them with relation name. Have I missed anything? So we have the ID that is set to string. It's going to be db object ID. We have the user ID that is set to object ID, but we'll also have, wait a second. But then also we have another relation, right? This should be user, and this should be of type user, which is referencing user ID, and the reference is ID. Now I have to add the same relation to the user because each user can have so many comments. So in here you would have comments, and this is going to be of type comment, and this comment array. Unemployed dev says live but no stream. I'm not really sure why Twitch doesn't work, but if you want, you can go to YouTube. So it is https youtube.com/CodewithAhsan. I don't know why Twitch doesn't like me. So in this case, let's see what we have as an error. So this is the model comment. Parent ID, references ID. What am I missing? Am I missing something? Because if I try to oh, now I understand. Because each okay. So there are two things. Each comment can have one single parent, and each comment can have multiple comments inside. So in here you would also have to add comments, which is also going to be comment this. And I think this should fix it. And because self relation detected, the field parent and the comments in the model both refer to the comment. If they're part of the same relation, add the same relation for them, that is relation name. Because then this should be name or name, and it should be comments. But then if I do a Prisma format, let's see. And then should this also be? No. I'm confused. Let's see. So Prisma. Let's do Prisma nested relation on the same model. Okay. So this title has you. No, I think this. Because this is okay. If I keep this one, let's see. No, it can't fix it automatically because ambiguous self relation detected. All right, let's actually do this so we can also find this on the fly. So you got a user, right? And then you have created by user relationship name. But then why don't you have Prisma 2 version? Oh, okay. Then that means that this should be something like this. So relation And this should be having name, comments, or should it be the other way around? Because this is created by, the name is going to be created by user ID. But then, okay, so then does that mean that I should have just the parent that says parent ID, or this guy? Mm-mm. But that's going to be the same thing. No, still ambiguous, but I have the name now. No, why do you test me so much? So if I do comments, it should be comment this, but then it doesn't like it, because then the name is still should be here. The name is going to be parent ID. No, parent ID rule, and the fields, sorry, fields should still have parent ID, and references should still be ID. I'm pretty sure it's something like this, but we'll see. So in this case, we have contact details. Da, da, da. So if you have a user that a post, you have relation name. Da, 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 da. Mm, mm-hmm. 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 But then, okay, so this is what I'm missing then. So it should be relation parent ID. Mm. So a self relation must have on delete and on update referential actions to set to no action in one of the relation attributes. Okay, so I think when the parent deletes, so this is the solution that I got to know. So relation name should be here, relation parent ID. So these should basically be the same. Now I also have to put on delete. So if I have on delete right here. Wait a second. So this should be a self relation must have on delete and on update referential actions. So let's actually go here and see. So in this case, on delete. Okay. So in this case, we can say relation blah blah blah, and here we have on delete, on update, no action. But on delete, I do want to have cascade. No, at least one of the scalar phrase. I would say on delete cascade still. So we go ahead and say on delete cascade, or does it go right here? No. And on update, no action. And on update, but do I need it here? No. So in this case, we have on update, no action, but we have on delete. Can I set that to cascade, please? Cascades, no. So now what does it say? A self relation must have on delete and on update reference set to no action in one of the relation attributes. So that means both have to be set no action. Aha, okay. So if I delete a parent, then the child does not delete. That's not cool. But okay, we'll live with it. That's fine. All right. So now that we have this, we are going to say, hey, let's do npx prisma push or prisma db push, which means we should be able to then, so database is now in sync. And I should also run npx prisma generate. So it generates my client. And then we should be able to, what's happening? Let's remove this guy. So this says eperm blah blah blah. Unplugged doesn't maybe model comment ID int ID default auto increment comment children. No, the problem is I'm not using Postgres. So if I do auto increment, the ID doesn't work. String children comment could also be comment children. Yeah, that could also work. Absolutely, yeah. Parent ID int, yes, that would work. But since we are using MongoDB, the schema itself uses the object ID. But I think it's pretty much what you said. So you could call this children, to be honest. I don't know. Let's call this children. Then we do a Prisma generate. Okay. So then we do chmod. What's the error that I'm getting? Operation not permitted. It's a bit weird one, but let's see. I had to relaunch and install to get Prisma back. Okay. Does that mean I would have to do this? Clear. And then I would have to generate the schema again. Well, let's see. All right. So now what we can do is we can say npm or npx prisma generate. Let's see if this one is happy. Yes, it is. Npx prisma db push. Cool. So now we should have our new sort of collection comments also there, which means that now I should be able to do this. And you can see that this is not red anymore. Yay. So now we have find many and we can get the comments just like this by getting the comments. And in this case, we can then just say, hey, return back the comments. So now if I go to my REST client, which was this file, and if I do send request, I should get an empty array. 500, that's nice. Why does it cry? Cannot read properties of undefined find many. Ooh, okay. Should I run npm run dev again? Maybe. And then let's try this again. So now we get the object with the comments as an empty array. Cool, cool, cool. Now let's also write the post comment. So in this case, I want to be able to have a bunch of things. So here we should have a post. In the post, what we would want to do is we would want to just add a new comment. So in this case, I would assume that the request that we have got is next request. And then we should have a const body equals request dot body. But we also want the authenticated request as well. So we want to make sure that post is only available when someone tries to post and not otherwise. So we are going to see, we're going to have a look at the REST API and authenticated. No. So let's have a look. Do we have a guard? No. Let's see. If I can go to events, providers, I want to see the adopters, module augmentation. Let's see. Client API. No. REST API. No. Let's have a look at the search. Middlewares. This guy. So middleware is, we should be able to add a middleware that matches the callbacks, and we should say authorize, return true if there's a token, otherwise not. I also want to look into something like with auth. So in this case, we should be able to, and my camera's battery died. Let's have a look at it. So in here, we should be able to say, hey, give me or let me know if you are authenticated, because if you are, then I should be able to just get the session, right? But then I should also be able to get server side props, but then I should also be here. So this is what I was looking at. Yeah, get server session. So I should be able to do this as well. So this is a restricted.js. Yeah, then I can get it from here. So I can say, hey, await get server session and next auth. And then here I should have the auth options. Does it need the request? What does it require? Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. I think if I just pass this the request, it should be good. Source has 2 elements, but target requires 3. No, it does require response as well. But that sort of because it uses the, I'm not really sure if it's gonna be compatible with Next 13. Okay, so in this case, we do have the request response, but we don't have that in Next 13. So we do have request. If I do res, or if I do next response, I'm pretty sure this is not going to work, but we'll see. And then we have the auth options that we're trying to import as well. And now what does it say? Next request is missing the following properties from the type, incoming message about, exactly, because this is not, the type is not that. So if I do next API request, then it might get happier, but then the next response is missing. So this would have to be next API response. But the problem is that it would still probably fail. We'll see. So in this case, we have the session. Let's say we say if not session dot user return next response dot JSON. And here we could say something like error. What? So now if I try to do this, comment rest, let's try to do this. Do I get what or no? No, it does just fails, because rest.getHeader is not a function. And that is because this is not next API request. Okay. Now I need to see. So next auth get server session with next 13. Let's go NextJS. Alan, how's it going, Alan? So how do we get the, all right, temporary fix for me. So you get request headers, cookies. That's not nice. Here's a workaround you can use if you component until the bug get fixed. So you get the next auth. I love that we have solutions. What I don't love is that I have to do it. No. Okay, so let's do that for now. All right. So then what we need to do is I'm going to copy this guy. I can also probably have a link right here in the chat, so we can always get it back from the live stream. And then this is what we want. Here is a workaround. So get server session. I'm going to go ahead to implement that in the lib. So get server session session.ts. Put this here. And then we have the auth options. We're going to actually import the auth options from auth. The rest of it looks nice, but then we have get server session. Let's change this to get server session for next 13 rather, and then here I can then use it for next 13, which means that this is going to be next request, and I need to change this to this. And this only requires the, how does it get this? Wait a second. Okay, so it gets it from there directly. Of course, so then I don't need to do anything. I don't need to pass anything at all. Cool. So then it gets a session. If it doesn't exist, or if it doesn't exist, then we do return. We can do next response dot JSON error not authenticated. All right. Otherwise, we can return the actual response. So now if I go to the REST client and I do post, cool, error not authenticated. Seems nice. Good, bro. Hope going well for you too. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good day. I'm a bit hungry. I'm gonna go and eat some good halal chicken, or maybe a zinger right after this. So I'm looking forward to it. All right. So we got not authenticated in this case. So that means if I make this call from an actual API where I have the session, then I should be able to actually do it. So in this case, let's try to move forward. I'm gonna remove the or let's keep the authorization token here, or let's move it. So content, fake content doesn't work. Now what I want to do is I want to sort of remove this, or let's implement this from the front end. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna close everything. And then what I want to do is when we are in our front end, so I have an API right now, which receives the request, but I want to also have the request body out of it. So let's say I have cons body equals request, or we could also say request.body body. It should give us a bunch of things. It should give us the comment itself. So we can take out the comment, right? And the comment is supposed to be of type comment. So what we do here is that we can actually say something like this. So comment is going to be of type comment, but bring it from Prisma client. And this makes it easier for us to not having to type everything. Now, the thing is that if I want to create a comment, I will not have the ID, but I want everything else. So this should be parent ID, user ID, blah, blah, blah. So in this case, you can use something in TypeScript called omit. And that means I can omit the ID property. So everything except ID can be in the comment. So I can do comment, and that should make it work. Now, there's a problem. So we would have to make sure that that this one has it. So how do I type request body in this case? The comment itself, comment does not exist on readable stream. What? What? Wait a second. Request.body dot pipe to blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. But then wait a second. Next 13 or NextJS, we should have a next request and next response. In addition to supporting the next request, I want to see next request. And next request has get all. I want body. Where's the body? It has on this page just request. Then do I get it from the context then? Context, next context, something, something. No. Wait a second. Where are you? Context. What? Okay. Wait a second. So this is the route TS. We get the request. How do I get the body? Request body. So this guy should have. Okay. then I should have the request.json. Okay, so that means I need to do something like this. So await request.body. This should give me the request body. So const request body equals request await body. And once we do this, or we could also do request.json, then we should be able to get the request body, and then I can say body, we can take out the comment from it. If I do request JSON, it says promise any because by default it is supposed to be that. And once I get this, then I should be able to say, hey, this is going to be everything but data comment has, but not the ID. Then what I should do is insert or create, and then here I can say, hey, comment, add it. Data is declared there. What? Omit, blah, 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 unknown ID. Am I missing some properties? Select. I'm using create, right? Ah, okay. My bad. So here it should not be this. It should be data. And here we should have comment. Makes much more sense. So then I can say created comment. And then I can say in this comment back. And new comment. Changing the names a bit. Comment. Sending back comment. So this should work. Context, remove this. And if I sort of remove this if condition, then I should be able to create a comment, but that would have no ID, nothing at all. So we are just going to test it for now. So if I go to the rest folder and inside that, let's see here. If I try to do this, it says 500. Why? Because if you look at this, it says text is missing. And that is coming from Prisma. So we need the text property. It is required. And then also for the Prisma schema, now that I think about it, I also need to do one more thing. And that is that in the Prisma schema, we have the parent that is required all the time, but it's actually not supposed to be there. So this should be this. So there could be a parent or there may not be a parent. And this is what we should have. So npx, we should be able to say npx prisma db push. So it pushes our new changes to it. And npm run dev. And now what I can do is I should be able to still create the right comment, but I would have to hard code it. So in this case, we can go ahead and say, hey, in this case, I'm going to say text is going to be fake content. We would have a user ID. Let's use a user ID that actually exists in our database. So if I go to my database, I have a user ID that is this one. So I'm going to actually use this guy right here. So user ID is going to be this one. Parent is going to be null, so we don't want that. What else do we have here? So if I look at the comment itself, it has text, user, likes. Likes are already added, so user ID, parent ID. So I don't think we need anything more than that. So now if I save this guy and if I send a request, we should have a new comment created. Let's see. Da, da, da. And there we go. Yay! So now we have a comment created with all of it. And now if I go to my user, no, not user, but if I sort of refresh all of this, I should have a comments collection that also has this comment, fake content by this particular user. So it's super nice. Would you first focus on learning vanilla React MERN 100% and then Next.js, or jump into Next.js immediately with only basic React knowledge? I mean, it depends on the answer usually is always it depends. So ideally, I mean, it depends. If your goal is to create projects, but also learn along the way, then that's what you should do. So jump into Next.js, try it out, and see if you understand everything. But if you don't have the core concepts, then I think it's going to be a bit difficult. So you would always have to focus on your core concepts alongside. So you cannot leave it. So either do it on the side or focus on that more than next, to be honest. So that's what I would do personally. All right, so this is the posting one. Now if I try to get comments, I should be able to get this array of comments, right? So now we have an API that actually returns back actual comments. So now that we have this, we can post comments, we can get comments now. um, I think that's pretty much it, right? So if I wanted to have a nested comment, I could actually get it, but I would have to have two different comments, one top level comments. So get top level comments, and this is just my REST API client. This is not my backend code. This is like using Postman or something. So I'm gonna add another one, and in here I'm gonna add something like, hey, this is gonna be nested comments, and here I want to have, I don't know, comments parent ID equals some ID. So in here, let's say we also create another variable we call parent comment, oops, comment ID, and then we'll get the ID. So let's say this fake content has the ID this, then I can now use this right here. So I can use this parent comment ID. So if I try to get nested comments right now, what happens? I will still get all the comments back because I have only one API call which just returns back all of them. So let's close this guy. So right now, if you have a look at here, I have find many that just returns everything, but I have to rather check, hey, do I right now have a parent ID or not? So in this case, the returning stuff is an array of comments, right? Is that accurate? Yes. So what we do here, we check if the request. So in here, I should be saying request, next request. I'm not really sure how do I get the query parameters, but I think I would have to use regular JavaScript for getting the URL search parameters, but we will see. Anyways, so in this case, I will say if the request dot params, no, query, no, URL, I know that happens. Okay, happens to be there. So in this case, we would have to say const search params equals new URL, and this should be request.url, and then I can say const parent ID equals search params.get. What? Search params. So it's a new URL dot search params. Yeah, params. Sorry. And now I can say search params dot get, and this one is supposed to be parent ID. And then I can say if there's a parent ID, then what you do here is you say comments equal this guy. Otherwise, comments equal this guy. Why does it say it doesn't? It's a constant. Ah, of course. Let. So then, if I have a parent ID, then I would want to do this. I would say parent ID is supposed to be the parent ID that we have, and it should be where parent ID. And I think this would make it easier to get with parent ID. So let's say if I wanted to get top level comments, I would send the request, and now I get the top level comments. If I want to get the nested comment of this fake content, I would have to send a request, but then it doesn't get me anything. So this is good because this request is sort of working in a way that we want. So if I wanted all the nested comments of this top level comment, this guy right here, I'm using its ID to get the nested ones. So if I want to do that, then I would have to have a nested comment, right? So write in the chat, what do we want to have as a nested comment? Let me know in the chat. Give me a fun little comment that you want to add as a nested comment. What should we add here? I can see there are a lot of creative people who are just saying, ah, this should be the comment, that should be the comment. But you can give one little comment that is fun, or I'll pick one. So for example, here I could go ahead and say parent ID is going to be parent ID, parent comment ID. Oops. But then here, this text has to be changed. So what do we add here? Maybe we could go with something like the earth is flat. Let's go with that. So then we have a text, then we have a user ID, and then we also have a parent ID. So if I want to create this, then I can go ahead and run this and let's see what happens. 500 internal error. So here it says unexpected token B in JSON position 98. So it looks like it doesn't fix this guy. So we would have to use the parent ID right here. Or maybe I need to do it inside quotations. Maybe that's why. I don't know. Can we try this? Let's say if I can do right here. Yeah, there we go. So parent ID comment here. Here character lifting up with big saying keep it up. What the heck? And thank you so much for the super chat. So this then should be this guy. So if I go ahead and say send request, there we go. So now I have this right here, and you can see that I have the text here, the parent ID here as well. So now if I try to get top level comments, I should still get one. Oh, but I get every one of them. That we also need to fix. So if I'm here, then it should essentially be where parent ID should be null. And this should only return back the ones that are top level. So now, but is it null by default? I think it is, but did I? Let's see. In the database, if I go to the comment, now we have 3 comments. Some of them have parent. Ah, okay. But then also, let's have a look. So in Prisma, then we have to make sure that it's either null or nothing, because we need to be able to fetch it. So we can say Prisma where property doesn't exist. So in this case, what would we do? So null and undefined. Params and duration field will be undefined, blah, blah, blah. But then parent ID, no, I think, can I have the properties right here? So if I go to parent ID, let's see, find many. We're gonna find out the right way to do this. So where args, come and find many args that has where input, and or like parent ID. So we have equals in, not in, greater than, contains, start with, mode is set. I think is set is the one that we are looking. So parent ID is set false. So then if I try to do this, I should be able to make the call and see the data coming in. Okay. Okay, is not. Query mode greater than, contains, starts with, not in, equals. If I do a not, Then I would also have to say is not. Uh, 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 uh. If I want to get this guy right here, and if I send request, then should it return anything? So when I do is set, it sends me two of those. If I do is set false, then it should send me one of those at least, right? But it does not. Why? That's a bit weird. All right, let's have a look. So fake content hits here. The parent ID here does not exist. So maybe it, because if it's, what? Why? So parent ID equals, or is null? No. Equals? No. Null? No. Not set? I don't know. Maybe that? It's gonna be weird if that works. But it probably works. No, it doesn't work. Nested comments? Why does this work? Uh, 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 uh. Oh, because I'm using the parent ID. We shall see. So let's run this in dev mode so we actually know what's happening. So npm run. Oops. Wait a second. Stop. Where are you? No. Run and debug. Create a JSON file. Node.js. Can I run it without it? Let's go with a CSS file and then go to run and debug, create a JSON file. So here, now it's talking. So here we could say add configuration, run via npm, launch via npm, and we can rather say dev. And here we can say run dev, run. Okay, so let's do run, and then we can run it, and then we can put a breakpoint here, right here. So we are sure that we are getting what we expect to have. So in here, I can go to the rest, hit this guy, and we should have a breakpoint triggering. There we go. So we get the request URL. Then I'm gonna remove this guy, and here. So now we have the URL. We get the search parameters, and where we go, then we should have, then we should not have anything. So we go here, we say find many where the parent ID is null. Ah, okay, that makes sense because that code is not accurate. So in this case, if we have a parent ID, then we should be using the parent ID. And if we don't have a parent ID, then this should be parent ID null. So I think it was right all along, and I was just not paying enough attention. So if I try to now go with comments rest, get top level comments, I should be able to get the top level comment. So here we got here, we went forward, parent ID, find many which have parent ID null. This should give us one little comment, but it doesn't. Okay, and then we should have this then as not is set true. Then we should be able to work with this. So then let's try this again. Blah blah blah. There we go, there we go, there we go, there we go. And now it says comments have two of those. Wait a second, did I click the wrong one? Yes, get top level comments. This is the one I want. Go here, go here. If there's no parent ID, find many where the parent is not set to true. And now I should have one. Yay! So now this works. So parent ID is null and everything looks nice. We go forward and we get this one. And if I if I remove the breakpoints, then that means that if I go ahead and try those, it should work. So if I want nested comments, I get 2. If I want single comment, I get this guy. Okay. So we are good with actually the 2 calls that we want to make. And now the only thing that's remaining is to sort of implement this with the post, with the session itself. So I can now create nested sessions, and also should be able to work with the form itself. And we also should be having this thing right here. So now if I try to post something, and if I'm not authenticated, then it should just say, hey, no, you can't do that. So send request, not authenticated. So if I'm not authenticated, it's not gonna let me create anything at all. But if I'm authenticated, then I should be able to post. So we'll keep this open now. And now we have some data that we can get on our front end. So the only part that's remaining is actually to hook everything up, and then we'll deploy it, and then everything should look nice. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna stop this stream here, because what we want to do is to be able to implement this on the front end, and then making sure that everything works. So that part I think we're gonna do next time, because we are way over the 2-hour limit. So we are 2 hours 22 minutes in. So yeah, we're gonna stop it right here. Thank you so much everyone who joined. Absolutely nice chatting with all of you, and thank you so much, Alan, for the super chat. Even though that was not required, it's nice. Cool. I can have a coffee maybe. So thank you everyone. This was nice. I want to stretch and eat. And then once we have our third stream, that is, I think, when we can wrap this up with a really nice sort of deployment as well, and something that you can actually get started with. So if I repeat what we have done so far, we've implemented some sort of front end, we've implemented a back end, we went through NextAuth, we also connected with Prisma, that allowed us to not only sort of have our users created automatically, but having a single driver, the Prisma driver, for both NextAuth, but then also for our own components or our own um, sort of entities. So the comments itself is done via Prisma. The authentication is done via Prisma. The whole database looks really nice. And I think this is pretty scalable when it comes to it. So with that said, thank you. Have a good rest of your weekend, and I'm going to see you later. Allah Hafiz.